Yeah, disheartening loss. Was never a time during the ball game that I didn't feel like at some point we were gonna take it over and maybe start to pull away. You look at it statistically, and we probably should have won that football game without any question. We won the turnover battle. We had 6 sacks on them. They had 0 sacks on us. You look at total yardage, but the only statistic that matters, obviously, is the final score. One thing that a couple things hurt us, obviously, but one thing that was huge was the penalties. 140-some yards. What was it? 14 penalties. What they have? 6. There was one time there was 3 times we took the field as an offensive unit and were penalized coming off of either special teams or an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on the defense. So, you put yourself in the hole like that and get negative yardage like we were getting from penalties. It's hard to fight come out on top when that is such a negative for you. And so we have got to clean that up in a hurry. They had 18 passes for over 10 yards. Their quarterback was right at 73% in pass completions. That's not acceptable. Even though we did get 6 sacks, when you throw the ball 55 times and complete 73% of it, you got problems. And so there's got to be some adjustments in that, obviously in that area. We settled for field goals offensively too many times rather than touchdowns. Huge problem. Really, we didn't do a great job in the red zone on either side of the ball. Huge problem. So we got a lot to take care of and to get straightened out. We did have some young players playing. You look at all the corners that played. This was their first time on the football field for us in a game, live situation. So very inexperienced there. You look at the guys that were moved in and out at safeties, other than Torrin, really limited to no experience there. So they gained a valuable experience in this game. So hopefully, as we go through the rest of our non-conference, we'll just keep getting better and better in some of those areas, and be very much so more productive on both sides of the ball. Special teams. 9 of those penalties were on the defensive unit, 2 on special teams, 2 on offense. So again, I keep coming back to the special teams, the penalty part of it, but that was so glaring to anybody standing on the sideline, to anybody sitting in the stands. So some things to address this week. I think our players will have a great attitude. They certainly are hugely disappointed, but they're a group of guys that I believe will fight through anything, and will work at getting things corrected. We had some injuries. Obviously, AJ's injury is hurtful to every single member of our team. Anybody that plays the game knows how he loves the game and how hard he plays the game, and how team-oriented he is. You just hate to see a guy get an injury that's going to be somewhat long-lasting. And, we got a few other guys banged up. We'll see on Sebastian in terms of, he only played in a portion of the game and couldn't really continue, so his status is a question mark.
You mentioned AJ. Do you have a clarification on his injury, or just going to be out for a while? Or?
Well, it's a foot injury. I won't go into it in any further detail than that. But those types of injuries are typically somewhat long-lasting.
Defensively, you mentioned all the pass completions. You guys weren't burned over the top. Because everything was underneath intermediate.
Yeah.
Were you guys passive? Do you need to be more aggressive? I mean, what's the reason there? Because you said
we're young. We're young in the secondary, so we didn't press a lot. We were bailing, and that became a problem for us. And sometimes in some of our blitzes, you find yourself in a 3-deep situation where you're soft on the outside, and there are lanes if you don't get the pressure that you need to get. So some of it comes back to young guys adjusting, playing the game. Some of it comes back to us as coaches and finding ways to help guys out on the field whenever we're getting hurt with the same thing time and time again.
Coach, have you said anything to the guys since Saturday just to try and get them back to even so they're not looking too much at Texas State?
Well, we gave them yesterday off other than for treatment. And so I did not talk to them as a group yesterday. I talked to them right after the game, obviously, and that's as disappointing as it is. We've got to learn from it. We've got to grow from it. We've got to be a team that doesn't make the same mistakes over and over again. And if we learn from it, then we'll be a good football team because we've got good personnel. We've got explosiveness on both sides of the ball. So if and in special teams, which was seen, I think, on the field. So and that game was just a collection of unbelievable plays to from the beginning to the end. That combination of what transpired, I've not seen in a football game before as much as what there was in that game. And all the plays that had to be looked at from up above, and you're talking inches on some of those replays to where if one or two of them goes your way, it doesn't have to be all of them, just one or two goes your way, it's a different story. So there was so many things that affected that football game. A lot of those things we definitely can control, and that's what we're going to be all about.
How does losing AJ affect your guys' offense and what you run, or does it? Do you try to keep it the same? Well,
you don't throw out an offense and start anew because of losing a player. But same token, we felt fairly deep at the position to where if we wanted to use 2 backs in the game, which we did, at times we used 3 backs in the game with Poppy being split and then a halfback and a tailback. Now you're talking about your depth not being quite the same and trying to do a lot of that kind of stuff. You've got to look at that a little bit, but we'll obviously still run a share of 2 back. I think that served us well in this ball game.
How would in all the shenanigans, lost track that you had a first-time punter, first-time kicker out there Saturday. How would you assess how Louie and Michael did?
I thought they did great. Both of them, I think when you look at, we give a special teams award to the player that we feel earned a special recognition. Those 2 guys, it's hard to separate. We fielded a bad snap on a punt. He averaged 42 yards a punt. His hang time was excellent. You look at Louie. We give him a lot of opportunities, and he made the most of them, except obviously on one. He responded well. His kickoffs were good, but not great, and and so that has got to improve a little bit. We've got to get a little more distance. We've got to get a little more hang time on our kickoffs.
Coach, kind of looking forward, what are are some of the certain things you guys are gonna have to do this week maybe differently than Texas State to beat Kansas?
Well, number one, not hurt ourselves. We did that repeatedly in the game. It's one thing to have some errors, some penalties. It's another thing to have those happen where they're just senseless penalties. They're ones that you coach against every time you talk to your players and every time you coach your players, and so that part, as much as anything, was discouraging to me.
You mentioned drives stalling out just when you got into the red zone. What's the fix to that? How do you guys go about trying to, put together touchdown drives, not field goal drives?
Well, some of that too was the game got extended to overtime, and so you're in the red zone. I think both teams were in the red zone maybe 7 times if you count the extended times, and so what's good in terms of percentage in the red zone. The idea is not to score points. The idea is to score touchdowns, and that's what we got to get better at in the red zone. And a combination of things enter into that. I thought Greg did a good job for what considered his first start, and I think he got better as the game went on. I think his first 2 drives produced points in the second half. So that was encouraging, and so it's just a matter of making plays. You're going to have individual opportunities in the throwing game. Guys just got to out-battle the defender. You got to make sure that your running game is extremely solid and strong, and that you're able to get the tough yardage down there when you need it. You just can't throw it up every time you want to try to, when you get in the red zone, want to try to score points. So it comes back to having a strong running game and then winning one-on-one battles in the receiving game.
How do you think Malik and Dorian kind of filled in for AJ and for really the whole game once AJ went out?
I thought they did well. I thought Malik had a very good game. Dorian, I think, missed on a couple opportunities as a running back to hit the crease that the play's designed to hit, and he'll certainly get better at that as he gets more and more carries. But I thought they both gave a great effort and both showed some ability at times. Malik, he caught 5 passes maybe out of the backfield, so his versatility there showed, I think, in the game. And then Poppy, we used as a wideout, as a slot. We used him as a running back. He's one of those versatile athletes that you can line him up anywhere on the field, and they got to know where he's at, and they got to have a plan to defend him.
What can you tell us about Kansas and the kind of challenge they're going to present here in Week 2?
Well, offensively, they've got really good skill players, and I think they utilize them well. Defensively, they run a 4-man front, very similar to what we do. They're coming off a win that is sure to ignite their program in some ways. And I think obviously when you take over a program and you're trying to get it resurrected, those wins don't come easy. And for them to open up the season with an opening win, I think was huge for them. So we'll face a team that's very fired up and a team that wants to stay on a roll. So, you look at them athletically, and they're a Power 5 conference team. They've got good athletes.
Coach, they used 3 quarterbacks on Saturday. How many quarterbacks are you expecting them to use?
I don't know. That's going to be up to them to make that decision. But if I was making it, I'd have them not use any and just put a Wildcat guy back there, you know. But that's not going to happen. So I don't know what their game plan will be going into week 2, but it wasn't because of lack of production that they used 3 quarterbacks. I think they feel comfortable with the fact that they probably have 3 quarterbacks that's certainly willing to, not only willing, but are able to step in and play well, and they wanted to get all of them experience.
Is this maybe the biggest unknown that you're going to face this season, just because they're a non-conference team, traveling almost across the country to go see them?
You know, I think all non-conference games are that way, you know. And anytime you have a first-year coach in your conference, you know, there's unknowns. Obviously, you're playing these guys very early in the season. They've only shown what they're about in one game, and so you don't have a lot to necessarily go on in terms of just the one game. There's going to be other things we see that we didn't see in that first game. You know, you look at somewhat what they did in spring ball and those kind of things.
Coach, their defense only allowed 219 yards on Saturday, and 49 passing yards. Maybe you take that with a grain of salt because it was Rhode Island. Maybe you don't. But either way, they played a football game, and their defense only allowed 219 yards. So, what are some of the things that you guys are going to try this week, maybe to throw them off their game?
Well, I'm not going to tell you. That's number one, because obviously they'll find out. But when you face a team that is not allowed any production or very little production from their opponent, you know, that obviously shows very well for them. Now, you know, just where they're at with that, we'll find out. I think we can be a good offense. I think we've shown in this game that we have the ability to put some points on the board, and we have a running game as well as a passing game. You know, we had 14 plays in the passing game over 10 yards. You know, we ran the ball well. Our overall average in the first game was 6.6. I think to their Texas State's 5.6 in terms of yards per play, and so, you know, we feel like we have a chance to develop into a really good offensive football team. Now, whether we're going to show that this coming week against them remains to be seen. But the potential is there for us, and obviously until someone does anything better against them statistically, you know, those are the numbers they got. You got to respect those numbers.
You said Greg had a pretty good first game for his first start. So what kind of progression do you expect to see from him going from week 1 to week 2?
Well, you know, just normal progression. You know, I think you saw a difference between him first quarter, second quarter, and how he played in the second half. You know, so you know, obviously now he's got a game under his belt where he started and saw a lot of different things. You know, we ran 96 plays. They ran 98 plays, I think it was. So, you know, there was a lot of snaps there, a lot of things that he, I'm sure, has taken in terms of value from all those snaps. And now you just make sure that just like any other position, you don't repeat your same mistakes, and you move forward and you get better. But he's shown that he's got the ability to be the kind of thrower you want him to be. You know, he can make the reads. He can find the open receiver. He's got the kind of arm that can make the deep throws, the short throws, and so he has that ability. Now, just a matter of really working on being consistent, and I think that's one thing from the quarterback spot. You need to be a consistent player. You can't be an up and down player and just show flashes through the course of a game. You've got to be productive and show that you're able to manage a game from start to finish.
The theory before you played Saturday was your defense was going to kind of have to hold the line a little bit till the offense caught up, I think was the conventional wisdom. How do you see that conventional wisdom now with one game in the book?
Well, we got to play better defensively. You know, there's no question about it. You know, we can't allow that many total yards. We can't allow that much passing yards. They can't have big plays in those numbers that they had, and so. You know, we're kind of caught in between right now in terms of finding what we're all about. You know, in terms of being able to stop the run, being able to stop the pass. I think this was a game that, no matter how discouraging it was, I think we should have learned quite a bit as coaches from this game, and we should have learned quite a bit about this game. Our players should have learned about this game. So now it's a matter of doing what we need to do to make ourselves a better team. And again, I don't care what phase of the game you talk about, whether it's no penalties in special teams, you know, whether it's playing better pass defense or you know, being a better drop team in coverage or what it is that we've got to do better on both sides of the ball and in special teams. We got to find the answers real quick, and we got to go about improving. And that's the thing I'm looking at doing. I'm looking at improving. I'm not discouraged with this football team at all. You know, so you know, it's I think. A team that's got too much spirit, too much heart, too much drive to not learn and not get better from that first football game. They will not accept what transpired in that game very lightly, and they'll be ready to move on to prove themselves as individual players and as a team. You know, we did have, for any guys in the stands that were wondering what we were doing when we looked at the wristbands, you know, we weren't trying to learn our plays. Obviously, with Michael George being there with the, you know, we had a combination of ways to get plays in. And normally we just signal more. Well, he knows all our signals, and there's a ton of signals. So instead of trying to retrain our guys and learning a complete new system, we added to the system of being able to call out numbers, 3-digit numbers, and those numbers were then meaning something in terms of a play, and those were on the wristbands, and so that was a way of trying to keep them from seeing what we were going to do in advance and trying to do something different.
Is that a 1 week deal, or is that how it's going to be this year?
No, that's a 1 week deal, and you know, we'll be back to totally signaling.
Did someone ask you that? If you guys were trying to learn your plays from the wristbands on Saturday?
No one asked me that, but you know, I don't know. You know.
Make sure it's out there.
just so they understand, because that was different for us, you know, and there was reason to do it, and it did help us in some ways, more so from the offensive side of it than the defensive side of it. But it was clear to me that as I looked over to their sideline at times, that it was sent down. Information was sent down that was then transferred to a guy standing right next to the guy that had the headsets on, and then it was signaled in late. So normally you signal in things whenever you see the personnel changes and you see the formation and that. But this was done later, and this was done after we were signaling. So that kind of tells you something. But you know, that had nothing to do with the outcome, winning or losing. You know, what had to do with winning or losing was playing good football and not making a lot of mistakes.
What about going back to Kansas, place you played, you've coached, Big 12 or Big 8, Big 12 country? Any feelings or inklings going back to one of your old stomping grounds like that?
No. I've been away from there for quite some time. Got a lot of respect for the Big 12 and obviously, their ability to recruit within the Big 12, and so Kansas will have really good athletes, and so we're just going to have to make sure that we rise up to a level that we play our very best football. And, in my mind, we've stepped on the field against, teams from the Power Conference before and have fared fairly well sometimes, So I don't think it's a thing that we worry about going in. We just know that we'll be facing a very good football team, and we're just going to have to play on top of our game and the best of our ability. And if we do that, we'll have a shot.